Thanks for watching this explanation of the residency program here at Grace Church. Caroline Miller, Reverend Caroline, Miller, oh my heavens, I am so sorry. Caroline Osborne, I can't believe I said that. You've been married a while now.
Yeah.
Caroline Osborne was you came as Miller, as our first resident. You became Osborne while you were here. Our first resident, you're getting ready to leave now, and so we wanted to have this discussion in front of the cameras so that future folks who either want to be a part of the residency or anybody who has questions about it can get this conversation. Your feedback has been so helpful. You've been such a gift to me and to Grace and to this program. So it'd be good for us to explain a little bit like we did on Sunday what we're really up to here. So
Sure.
With that said, Reverend Caroline Osborne, what made you apply? What made you want to come to the residency?
Well, getting out of seminary, the idea of having a full-time job that paid decently sounded very appealing. But that was not actually the main reason. I prayed about it a lot. I wanted to go wherever God was calling me. And I had a lot of friends who were coming out of seminary, and they would go either straight into being the priest in charge or the rector or the vicar of some church somewhere, or they would go be an associate or a curate somewhere and basically do whatever the rector didn't want to do. So I was seeing my friends going through this and trying to discern where God was calling me, but also very aware that I did not feel ready to be the only priest in a church. But I also didn't feel ready, well, I don't know about ready, but I didn't necessarily want to go and be the person who got all the unwanted tasks. That doesn't sound terribly appealing, because also someone hands you something, and if you're not sure how to do it, I don't want to let people down. So it was a combination of factors. I prayed a lot about it. God did not give me skywriting, but the big thing that was such an appeal to me was the nature of this program, that it is neither of those things, that I would be part of a team, so I wouldn't have to know how to do everything myself, but more than that, I'd also be very intentionally trained. So, for example, part of what that's looked like, you told me right from the beginning that preaching was going to be a big part of it. And how we've done that is we've had these preaching feedback forms that we've developed. And we've gone through those week after week. Early on, we used to watch my sermon 3 times, which was good, but also exhausting.
It was exhausting.
But just
it was helpful in the beginning,
it
though.
was,
Just after a while, we just got used to it.
After a while,
we didn't need it as much.
But just to have be able to see myself, my whatever weird tics I might have had speaking, to hear those things, all of that, just that sort of intentionality of it's about learning. It's not just you're going to preach, but when you preach, we're going to give you feedback so next time you do better, and we're going to watch it together, and all these pieces. The learning component of it was hugely appealing, and a lot of why I came.
It is a big distinctive between a curate or a regular associate who just comes in and does whatever they're told to do. In this instance, we talked about preaching. We talked about making sure that you could do all the leadership tasks that were assigned, like leading a vestry, and what that meant to lead a vestry. When you did that for the first time, how did it feel?
Well, it's funny because leading up to doing it for the first time, before that was quite on the horizon yet, I would sometimes we'd be having vestry come up, and you'd say, okay, Caroline, I expect you to be there, and I'd think, well, I don't have anything to say, I don't have anything to do, this is just hours out of my evening. So I would kind of wish, do we really have to? But when I did lead it for the first time, I was glad I had been there, because I knew how you ran the vestry. I was nervous, because I wasn't sure necessarily exactly how it was going to go. The first time I led was right after you'd gone on sabbatical, and there was a lot going on. So I was nervous, but I also was really glad to have been coming over the months leading up to that, so that I had a pretty good idea of what a normal vestry meeting looked like, and kind of how to rein that in a bit, having seen how you would kind of guide the conversation even as you were inviting conversation.
Commentary, right, yeah. So you had these expectations of what you were going to get when you were going to come, things that you were, obviously we talked about preaching and leadership here at Grace, book discussions. We've read several books together. and talked about those and how they influence ministry, whatever. How did what we talked about meet when you came here? How did that match up?
Yeah, what is the saying? Something like, we make plans and God laughs or something. So there were pieces that actually happened how we expected them to, but there were also pieces that were very unexpected. So that intentionality piece, like with the preaching, I knew that was something I'm going to be focusing on. I didn't necessarily know what all that would look like, but I knew that would happen, and that did. But then there were other pieces, both personal life and here at the church, that were just complete surprises. Personal life, for example, there's a gentleman at the first service, you know him well, a gentleman by the name of Roger Staley, who loves to tease people. And when I first came to Grace, one of the first weeks, I was standing out greeting folks as they came in. Roger was an usher, and he was out there too. And he turns to me and he goes, "So, Reverend Caroline, are you dating anyone yet?" And I was like, "No." I came single, and I still am.
Yep.
3 weeks in or whatever it was. And then, being Roger, he teased me. So a few months later, though, being Roger, he was serving again as an usher, and he decided to bring it up again. "Oh, so Reverend Caroline, are you dating anyone now?" "Yes, actually, Roger, I am." And I think I took him by surprise, which was a lot of fun. But it also kind of took me by surprise, just those sorts of changes in my personal life. I started as, started here as a single woman. I am now leaving, married, expecting my first child, all these different pieces.
Huge.
I knew ordination was a big life change that's coming, but I didn't know the rest of it was.
Right.
So personal life, a lot of life happened here for me. But then when you get to the church side, there are also unexpected pieces. There were, for example, when you went on your sabbatical, we planned, boy did we plan. We had all sorts of conversations. We had really hard conversations. What would we do if a child in the church died? Oh, that was a brutal thing to think about.
Not fun.
Not something we ever wanted to happen, but we wanted to be prepared if the worst possible thing did. Or natural disasters. What if there is a hurricane? This is Florida, and in the course of this hurricane, the church building is just totaled. What do we do? All these different things we talked about. What we didn't plan for was that a little over a week from the beginning of your sabbatical, our worship minister submitted his resignation.
Yep.
He found a position somewhere else,
Time
and
to
he
go.
was going to leave a week after you.
Yep.
And that was a surprise. We did our best to prepare for that. We scrambled, pulled together a plan. And then while you were gone, 3 more people, part-time folks on staff, each one for a different reason, left.
Yep.
So I remember meeting with you before you came back and saying, "Funny story, about half the staff is gone. I don't think it was me." And just what it was like figuring that out in your absence, but also just the unexpectedness of it.
Yeah.
Ministry comes with unexpected challenges, and those were certainly among them.
And you had to handle it. It was just on
Yeah,
you. And
yeah.
so now when those things come up again at your new job in Nashville, it's not to say that you're going to be able to be like, "Oh, I've done this before," but you're going to at least have some familiarity of, "Oh, I've seen this.
Yeah,
I know
for
what
sure.
I maybe want to do or how I want to handle this."
I think another big piece, because it's always a slightly different situation. The likelihood of the rector going on sabbatical and the music minister quitting
Right.
within such a short period of time is probably not going to happen like that
Right.
again. But to have encountered those unexpected things and say, "Oh, well, if I've handled that, I don't know how I'm going to, but I can handle this too." And the sort of confidence that engenders.
Nice.
And even just, I mentioned the personal life stuff that was unexpected. Just what is it like to go through so many life changes while being in ministry? That was a learning experience too, and a good one.
Well, yeah, which you'll continue as Verity comes. So you've had these, how to handle the personal stuff and how to do the work stuff. You've had lots of good experiences on some of these, not all of them, obviously, but some good trial runs, with you being in charge of it. As you are looking at leaving or getting ready to leave, what are some of your takeaways?
I think there's so many things I've learned. Some of them are very concrete things. We talked about the intentional learning pieces. So the vestry piece, I know how to do that. My husband is an associate at another church, and it's not a knock on his church because he's not in a residency program. He just hasn't intentionally learned that. So So he's getting ready to go to church, and I can say, hey, actually, I know how to put together a vestry agenda,
Nice.
you know, and maybe something he doesn't have experience with. So there's those sorts of things that are very practical, concrete things I'm going to be taking. There's the intangible things. I mentioned confidence. I think that's a big one. Just confidence in this role and in this ministry. It's different. Priesthood is different from lay ministry. They're both so important and so good, but they're different. And so to go from being a lay person to being a priest while here, having learned, I've gained that confidence in that. I think another big thing, though, which I would love to take with me, I have to figure out how, is just this program. This program has been such a gift to me. I think the Episcopal Church needs more residencies. You know, like I mentioned, I see my friends go out there and they're going straight into a church and they're the only priest there. And a lot of times, you know, the folks who hire these new seminarians, maybe it's really tiny churches that are struggling, which goodness knows those churches need priests. I don't want to take that away from them. But when you don't know what you're doing to begin with, and then you're put in that position.
It was very messy.
You know, I have so much respect for my friends who step into it, but it's hard.
Yeah.
The Episcopal Church needs more residency programs. So I'm hoping that, you know, I'll be kind of a sleeper agent. I'll be there for a little bit, and then I'll say, you know, I was in this great program. You know, I bet we could do this here. What would it be like? And hopefully I can inspire that to happen there, too.
Love it.
I know even, you know, my husband at his church, he's going to, down the road, not right away, you know, it takes some time to be there and so on. But down the road, I think he would love to start a residency because he's seen how much it's meant to me. So even though he wasn't even a resident, for him, standing on the outside and seeing it, he said, hey, that's a good thing. I want to replicate that.
How cool for a husband to see his wife being invested in this way and thinking, oh man, I want to do that for somebody else.
Exactly.
That's just so biblical.
It is. It's incredible. It's
That's
great.
cool. That's fun to hear. How about a favorite memory or two?
Well, before we get to that, you've asked me a bunch of
Yeah,
questions. I feel it's only fair. I can ask you one.
Okay.
I'm curious, you know, so I was the first resident. I was the guinea pig, and it was an honor to be the guinea pig. But I'm wondering for you, this is the first time that you were mentoring a resident.
Right.
This is the first time for you being in this role, and I'm sure you had plans and expectations. Did the program meet your expectations?
Did you measure up?
Things? Yeah, did I measure up is what I really want to know. No, but I mean, the program as a whole, like, what are you coming out of this with
no,
for the
it's
program?
good. So you and I have talked a lot about this, but for me, the residency is my antidote to change the world, honestly, not in which may sound silly and naive or maybe grandiose and naive, but I want the Episcopal Church to grow and change. I want the kingdom of God to grow and change, and we've done lots of things on little levels here in Ocala, which are good, but how does a small church like ours, I mean, in a small area, how do you affect the world? And to me, this is it. This is how we affect the world. We change the world with the residency because none of the residents are ever going to stay. They're going to go out and take what they've learned here and share it someplace else. And so the sending nature of that leadership is so beautiful to me, and it's been a joy to do it with you. You've been so gracious because in the first couple of years, but certainly the first year, there was a lot of, I think this could work, or I think this will be helpful.
A lot of figuring things out.
Right. You know, what would be valuable for you? I have a much better sense now of what is actually going to be helpful versus not. You already even said it. You know, when you first came, we watched all the sermons. It just took up too much time, and we didn't need to do it. Now, I think a couple times it's really helpful.
Sure.
But every week was too much. So you taught me that we don't need to do that. We still need the feedback. And now we've even developed some folks in the congregation who are going to give that feedback. So it's going to be not just my feedback, but or the staff team feedback, but also folks who have to endure us and listen to us, like their feedback. How valuable is that? And you were the one who helped me develop that. I think your willingness to sort of jump into almost anything. I also really liked, I mean, I say your willingness to jump into things. I really liked your pushback on stuff, like I don't want to do this, or I don't think this is helpful. That caused me also to think through, is this helpful? Because sometimes I agreed, Like, okay, you're right, this isn't helpful anymore. And other times I'm like, no, we're going to keep doing this because I see a greater value. But the fact that you gave me that feedback really helped me think through, why are we doing this? Because a lot of them were just ideas. Like, I think this will help. Let's find out. And some were and some weren't. And I think that the program will constantly be going through that refining process. But it's funny you say that you gained confidence being here. I've always seen you as a very confident person because you were always very confident in giving me feedback. Here, I think this. I remember the first time, couple times that happened, I was like, I don't care. Like, you know, like, who are you? And then I realized, no, we're in this relationship that we have to listen to each other and have discussions that maybe I like, but maybe I don't. It doesn't matter. Like, we have to have them. And it really helped me to have that discussion with you on a regular basis. So really, the giftedness that God has already put in you for those discussions.
Thank you.
It ended up being a much greater gift to me than I anticipated. I knew it would be good. I just didn't know what it would be like. And so that's been really fun. So it's funny for me to hear you say, oh, I'm more confident. I'm like, I thought you were pretty darn confident. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens to you next and what comes of that. And I have no doubt that you're going to affect the kingdom of God. And I love that. Like,
thank you.
Man, that's...
No pressure. I'm just called to change the world now.
Right, yeah. And I mean, yeah, I think every church has one shot. Like kind of one big thing you can shoot at changing the world. Whether they know it or not, I think it exists. Doesn't matter size or not. Like, you can do something. This to me feels like that. Like, this is the way that I think we can change the world. And yeah, I think you're doing it. I think you're gonna do it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, so favorite memory?
Favorite memories. It's really hard to pick. I mean, so much has happened in the last 2 years. We've had a lot of fun times just with discussions and figuring things out. And those car rides after Pro Poly when we had the factory thing, the factory devotional, we'd drive back and we'd talk for like an hour.
Yep.
I do think it is hard to pick. Also, just personal memories. I mean, I got married in this church.
I know.
But memories of...
And your husband was also ordained with you.
Yeah, we were ordained together here.
So you both got ordained here.
Yeah.
You were married here. I mean, just wow.
Next time there's a big life event, I'm going to come back. It has to happen at
It has to happen at
Grace.
Grace. I can't go anywhere else.
That's how
No,
this works.
I hear you. I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but one specifically more to the residency program. I'll focus on that just as a way of narrowing
Sure.
it, I guess. One small one, but also an important one, was early on when I was first starting to preach. I think just about any time I preach, I'm nervous because during the service, I'm like, oh, I didn't put that in the sermon and I should have. You know, there's always those thoughts that come into your mind. You're like, what if I mess this up or whatever it is.
Or you hear the gospel, another part of the scriptures that you hadn't heard before, and you're like, oh, I should say something. And you're like, how do I do this?
I fit that in?
Like 2 minutes before I'm preaching.
Exactly. Yeah, there's always all those last minute things. Or then you're just like, now that I hear that, I should have rewritten the whole sermon and preached on that.
It's so true.
There's always something. But those sorts of nerves were even worse at the beginning because it was also not being used to being up there in the pulpit, not being used to that type of preaching in front of people. So when I would be getting nervous, I would think a couple different things. One thing was, you know what, even if I totally bomb, this is the Holy Spirit's work and he can do something great. And so, you know, kind of take a little pressure off myself. But the other thing I would think is that everyone in the church, everyone in the congregation wanted me to succeed. There was no one out there like just waiting for me to fail. They wanted me to succeed. That's why the residency was here. They were excited for me. They wanted it to go well. And to feel like everyone was on my team, it really helped. It really helped, especially with those first few sermons. So it's a small thing in a way, but it also was really meaningful to me. I think another one really speaks to grace is just to how much people embraced me here. When I was getting married, when I was planning that, several of the ladies came up to me and said, you know, we'd really like to have a shower for you, Reverend Caroline. Would that be all right? I thought, that's so sweet. What a sweet desire and a gift that they want to do this for me. I really appreciate it. I thought maybe 10 or 15 women, maybe, would show up. And I said, absolutely, thank you so much. I would love that, thank you. Well, 70 women from Grace came. It was insane. The generosity, the kindness, the warmth of that. I mean, the parish house was gorgeous. I just felt so cared for and so embraced by this
Beautiful.
church. And it was kind of distilled in that moment, but I've seen it in so many ways throughout my
Right.
time here. And I think that's also part of why this residency has been such a gift, is that what a way to start ministry.
Right on.
What a way to start ministry in a congregation that cares that beautifully.
And want you to win.
And wants you to win,
Yeah.
and to have the chance to see how beautiful a healthy church can really
That's cool.
be. It's been a gift. It's been a gift. So that is a memory I will treasure, for sure.
And if you were to replicate, I mean, you can help your church do the same thing. Like, hey, let's make sure that they feel as successful, even if they're not. I mean, those first sermons are never that good.
I don't even want to go back and read my manuscripts.
Well, I mean, they're just hard because you don't know the context, you don't know the people, you're trying, everybody's trying, and it's just hard. And yet
It is.
still, I love that. I think you're 100% right. Folks in the pew are like, no, you can do it. Keep plugging away.
Yeah.
And you have definitely gotten so much better just because you're trying. Because you're trying. I mean, the hard thing about preaching is it's every week, and so there's a tendency to be like, well, whatever, I can't get it done, or I can't get it good
I'll just
enough.
throw something together
Right, I'll
and
throw
see
something
what it
together
is.
and don't worry about it. And you've never taken it that way. You've always taken it like, no, I want to keep growing and getting better, and you have. And so it's been really cool to watch. And I think your next church, you're going to walk in after only 2 years of doing this on a regular basis and be more than 2 years ahead, or 2 years in, because you've had feedback that a lot of folks don't get.
Yeah. I mean, when I go to my next church, I want to be like, okay, who can I ask to give me feedback? 'Cause I
Nice.
don't want to lose this.
Nice.
It's been such a valuable tool for me.
That's cool. Well, I don't know what to say except thanks for being the first. Somebody had to be, and you're it. Scary, and yet you did it.
Well, thank you. This has been such a gift to me. I would happily have just stayed at Grace because I love these folks. I love being here. But I believe so much in this program that I felt the call to leave to let it keep going. But thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this time.
It's been a joy.
Yeah.
All right.